It's a Monday. Mondays are never fun days. Sometimes they are, I guess. It's all about perspective, right? On Mondays, I usually enjoy a fresh outlook, a new week with work, with, just like a fresh start to the week. If you are working or if you're in school, after you have a good weekend of rejuvenation. But for some reason, my husband and I, we've always had schedules that consisted of working or school, even on a weekend. So I guess it really depends on your mindset or your schedule. But I figured we're going to start having these chit chats since I do a lot of momming it up and running around, taking, one son here, my daughter to school there, and have some conversations. Let me see how did I do this anyway? Let's see. Oh, here it is. So I wanted to talk a little bit and see what you guys were thinking. I don't really understand what's going on when it comes to this Sebastian Rogers case down here in Tennessee. It's very interesting how the TBI, local law enforcement officials, and the FBI seem to be on different pages with things, right? Have you read the statements that were put out lately? I thought it was really interesting that they still have Sebastian listed as 14 years old. That has to be strategic, in my opinion, or AI. But then I was looking through different sourcing, and when you do that, it doesn't show you Sebastian Rogers being 14 anywhere. So a lot of this stuff, when this case started being discussed online so heavily, I realized was people overlooked law enforcement and the CART team and, all the different things that were deployed pretty early into the disappearance, which is what I've always said, is that I believe there's an investigation. I think that the FBI is heavily involved. And personally, I think we're going to be seeing arrests very soon. I really do. And I know a lot of people don't agree with me on that. But just with the stuff that has happened online, especially with just all the different YouTube dynamics, it doesn't look right. And they have to rule out prime suspects, right? So the prime suspects when anybody disappears, especially a child, is the parents. And then anybody closest to that child. And you have to rule them out, and then you work out from there. And as all of you know, that whenever we discuss any of the parents, people's feelings get hurt, right? So no matter who you're talking about, somehow, some way, it affects their feelings, and it's really bizarre. So as an investigator, I think, if anything, it makes people look into the parents even more, because it's kind of alarm bellish. When your child's missing, your heart is going to be in such agony. You're going to be in such agony that there's not going to be a chance for you to care about what anybody has said about you. You're just going to want your child, and you're going to want all the help to find your child. And one of the biggest red flags, I think, that I've noticed is I live here, and I hardly see any flyers. I have asked if I could grab flyers from anybody or grab t-shirts. Nobody ever wants to do that. And I think it's because, I don't know. They don't like me because I don't know. I don't talk to the parents. I never tried to. I don't know what it is. But you would think that you'd want anybody possible, especially locals, moms, dads, everybody, to be putting the flyers everywhere, wearing t-shirts all over the place, because you want the child to be found. So I could just say from my personal experience, it is odd, and it is, raises kind of question marks, right? And I've seen that over the last year and a half. And so I can imagine as investigators, these things are even more, unsettling, and they have to rule all the parents out. And for some reason, they haven't been able to. But then that some reason is what you're sitting here on right now, in my opinion, making things much more complicated when you have YouTube as such a big focal point of a missing child's family's life, right? You have the stepdad that comes on dressing up as the stepfather. I mean, both of them have had, breakdowns and things like that on different shows, which is expected under stress. I mean, I can give a lot more compassion and understanding to the father based on, everything that I've seen. It seems like with him, he was more like manipulative stuff that's gone on. But even that, I don't have a clue why they haven't ruled him out. I have no idea, right? Even though that really gets people mad, that shouldn't get people mad. And I don't think it's helping investigators by the way that everybody acts about it on the internet, to be honest with you. I don't know. That's just been something that I've been thinking about. Hey, Lisa, how are you? I know, she's always been odd to me. I'm not saying she's involved, but I just thought it was, really bizarre how some of them are, where they didn't want his flyer. Well, we already know what he looks like. Well, it doesn't matter if you know what he looks like. The fact is that if somebody did do something and he was met with foul play, you want that person to have to see him every second of every day so that the guilt becomes so relentless that they go into law enforcement and talk, right? So that he can be discovered and found and justice can prevail. And if he wasn't with us, he could have the proper, being laid to rest and everything. I have found a lot of people that do talk about him. I know why people come over, obviously, with our situation, since that was my YouTube debut. When the stepdad, when they tried to make that monstrous, bizarre lie up saying I was trying to come on that show and I was pretending to be the stepdad. I mean, who would even put 2 seconds into some random mom on the internet? You wouldn't. And that's all the reasons, one of thousands, I'm sure, that has people investigating even harder into all of it. And instead of, what I don't get either, Lisa, one of the things that I don't understand is with the locals, it does seem like a lot of them really don't quite understand. Like, there was a lot of people that thought he was found already. People went around saying that. That was very weird. There's been so many different layers to this that I've seen over the last year and a half. And then a lot of people that didn't even know he was missing. But for example, last year during Sebastian's birthday was the biggest holiday parades that we have, right? We had the one in Clarksville, the one in Hendersonville, and the one in Gatlinburg. And the Gatlinburg one is huge. And I was asking everybody, why don't you guys get a float? Is there a way to get a float? This would be an excellent time to distribute flyers and nothing ended up happening with that. Because so many people, I don't think they realized that he was still missing. But now it's back in the news again, thanks to the FBI making that post, and it is being talked about. And I personally believe that it's being thoroughly investigated. When the FBI is involved with a missing child, and unfortunately, none of the parents are cleared yet, either they're going to come out and have clear people, or they're going to end up arresting people. That's just... I don't think that there's any way around it. Yeah, the pressure has to be there. But the thing is that if we're fighting against each other, it's not very helpful, right? Like, I've been enjoying listening to the McCoys lately, and I have to catch up on their video that they just did. because I know that they came to Hendersonville and tried to put up flyers. Now, if you go back in my live streams, when I was over there putting a flyer up, all heck broke loose. So when stuff like that's going on, that is not really, doesn't make people want to come out and hand out flyers or hang them up, but they should be. Mr. and Mrs. McCoy, all kinds of people that live here. I know they don't live here, they had to travel here, but should be going out and should have been putting flyers up the entire time. I should see flyers of Sebastian everywhere. I'm sorry, I get very triggered about that because there's enough YouTube people, not anybody that I've talked to, but I know of enough of the YouTube people that were out there for the clicks and the views and the live streaming, and that this place should be peppered in Sebastian's flyers. We shouldn't go into any Walmarts or any places that his flyers aren't there. They should be all over. The yard side banners should be on the exits of the highways. I only see that one every time I think it's Bullhorn Betty that puts them up, to be honest, because anytime that she's been here for something, even court dates, I see a new yard sign on one of the exits in Clarksville over on Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. And those of you that have watched me and know me, long before Sebastian over the years, you know that I do a ton of, driving around with all the different appointments and things like that. So I am all over the place seeing things all the time. And just like this morning, I had to drop my one son off at 5:30 in the morning. So yeah, I got kicked out of the first Facebook group I was in because we were in the middle of moving here. They kicked me out of the group. And then there was so many groups that popped up that were all the same that I didn't know what the heck was going on. But I haven't really seen much about anything in the other groups, the regular groups. I know that one time I posted something about Sebastian in the regular group, and somebody had written that they don't want the drama there. And all it was his flyer. I thought that was really odd. But the one time that I had, put the video out when we drove by, and of course the yard sign's still crooked. It's right in the right of way of the road, by the way. So I personally think that it's a tactic to try to get people to fix the yard sign so that they could pretend people are harassing and, all of that. Because the yard sign's been crooked the few times that I've driven on that block to say a prayer and to check it out. And we all have a legal right to do that if we're not bothering anybody. We all do. I don't think the people even live there, to be honest, at this point, or in a while. And the yard sign was crooked. And I do think that if they're trying to bait people to get out and fix the yard sign, I can't imagine why you'd have it crooked like that, or you wouldn't have a new one up in front of where he allegedly disappeared from, when I personally don't think you made your home from Texas Roadhouse. I don't. But if they have videos showing him making it, arriving back at the house, then I would change my opinion. But if it's only audio, I think that there's a chance that he left maybe with the yellow coat guy at Texas Roadhouse even. Because, where does a yellow flashlight come from? Because now we're talking about a yellow flashlight. Or sadly, I do agree with, Mr. McCoy about, is it possible with the garbage can? Because we had that neighbor that came out early on. He also was that weird pastor that did repent Chris in the beginning protests. And he was saying that Sebastian asked to be put in garbage pails in middle school. I think that was all set up, stage distractions. I don't think that was real. But it is a weird narrative that came out early in the beginning. And because they didn't check the landfill right away, I wonder. But I do think that was one of the lies and distractions that was put out there, that somebody, just like the phone calls that morning, there were certain phone calls that were not legit. I think that was another one of the distractions, was saying that. But who knows? I think we'll be finding out before we know it, because I do believe, and I think everybody should have kind of known when the FBI had a $50,000 reward for a missing child, that this case is not cold, and it's not going cold. And if Carter isn't going to be strong enough to say, hey, there's enough circumstantial here, just in the videos and the panels on YouTube alone, in my opinion, there's enough probable cause, and I'm not getting warrants, I'm being denied them, to go and do what he needs to do. Bring people on down in. And he'll be the most, he'll go down in history for being the right person to do the right thing. But I think politics, right, play a role. Maybe that's why. And if people are friends, they should have automatically recused themselves. If Craddock is close to the family, he should not be involved, but he's not the lead detective. Carter is. This is Carter's case. So that's what I find to be interesting. But the FBI being involved, who knows? Who knows what's going on? A lot of this could be strategic. I know a lot of people didn't agree, but I do understand why they're not going to tell the parents anything. They're not going to tell Seth anything. They're not going to tell them. It's an active investigation. The parents are always the prime suspect. They're never going to give them information. I know Chris Proudfoot was saying that he was always told everything, and they tell the parents before they'll tell anyone else. That's not true. And if Carter or somebody is the reason that Chris knew about the 400 plus cameras and the 76 or whatever cars, well, that right there can tell us something, right? Maybe that's why the FBI is involved. Is there something going on here with the lead detectives? Or I don't know. Because then I can understand why Seth would be outraged and upset. If you're giving this information to the stepfather, but you're not giving me any, then I can see why that would be justified. But on its face value, right? I mean, I can understand that they're never going to tell parents anything until they're ruled out, because they're still all suspects. But the shenanigans that have gone on YouTube from the beginning of the case, and how they still go on, FBI handles things that are in different states, and they also handle a lot of stuff that goes on the internet and cyber crimes, and there's been a lot of them. I know I've dealt with a lot of stuff just for talking about Sebastian. That's insane. Absolutely insane. And what I was saying before, sorry, I'm getting everything together to go run off and drop this stuff off, was what happened after I had done that one live in December. There was a whole bunch of the channels saying that we were stalking just because we drove by, right? This is the tactics that have gone on. And if you're an investigator and you see all of this stuff surrounding this, are you not going to think that's interference? And if you're the stepfather or a mother of the child that's missing, and you're buddy with the people that are doing that, with the people that are on YouTube harassing families, making up stories, intimidating them, doing all this stuff, how is that not going to look like you're trying to interfere with the active investigation in which you are still a prime suspect of? That people have enough time to hang out with YouTubers, because I think they're all kind of keeping it in the family, in my opinion. They've all known each other for quite some time, some people. Then you have plenty of time to be out there begging to find Sebastian and begging for more resources. You don't just sit there and have him, and have fun and games and act as if it's over, done with. You're in grieving. You're doing a grieving course with some random pastor in North Carolina. You're not going to get mad and upset when I'm asking about the letters to Esme guy and why was he acting the way he was in the beginning of Sebastian's disappearance. Why was he behaving like that and searching when you guys were searching? You know, does he know Sebastian? Does he know what happened or why he might have ran off? Instead, everybody went ballistic about that. That's not normal behavior. The way that people have acted in this case is not a normal thing. So yeah, personally, I think we're going to see arrests soon. I think it's shit or get off the pot kind of at this point. And the FBI is heavily involved. And I think it's going to be interesting because there's no excuse at 18 months that there's not more answers for Sebastian. And we shouldn't be seeing the parents playing games and having a good time while they don't know where their child is. It's the most disgusting thing is seeing the acting, dressing up as another parent. I mean, it's just, how would anybody even remotely think any of this is funny? Hey Gus, how you doing? How are you feeling? I really believe so, Lisa. I really believe so. Because I think it's really just the only time that I can imagine people acting so irrational and so, grotesque is because they know that the time is short. And just because you might be friends with somebody and all of this and that doesn't mean anything. The FBI is involved. They've been involved. And I think that they're not the kind of people that you want to play with. If they think that burner phones and discords can't be read and all of the planning and calling CPS on people and doing all the stuff that they've been doing is going to go without the FBI or Secret Service knowing about it, you're out of your damn mind. You're talking about a missing child that's been missing for 18 months now, that we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in resources to find him, and nobody has any idea where he is. He's been gone without a complete trace. Things that you would think people would want to talk about and look into, nobody wants to, like the letters to Esme guy. Instead of something like that, nope, that caused everybody to go nuts, right? So you have all these behaviors, and I just think that it's over with. I think that people are going to be getting arrested, and there's going to be a lot of accountability. And it's hopefully Sebastian is still alive and he comes home safely. But I'm sorry, I think at this point, that's just, I don't think so. I just don't. Yeah, pitter patter, you don't call and ask permission. You just go and you hand out flyers. There's a child missing for 18 months. You don't get the permission of the prime suspects. No offense, but you don't ask permission anymore. I'm not going to care if I hurt anybody's feelings, whether even Seth, I'm sorry to say that. But it's Sebastian that's still missing. This sweet boy is missing. And he deserves to be put way above and beyond anybody's feelings, unless I'm misunderstanding what your comment is. I personally have been treated extremely unfairly by everyone, and I've kind of just had it, to be honest, because I've been here, and everybody knows that people ask about Sebastian when we're out and about, those that recognize that he, what he looks like and care about him missing. And there's a lot of advocacy that we can do, and we've tried, and I don't think it's been very nice, because there's no reason to make big deals and do all of this. You just do it. You just do it. You go there, you hand out the flyers, you wear the t-shirts, you do it. You don't do it because Chris and Katie are going. This is not about the parents. It's not supposed to be, oh, this side versus that side. There's a missing teenager, period. And sadly, none of the parents are cleared. So let's see when they will be. Somebody's going to have to clear them, or they're going to be arrested. We have tons of cases where people get arrested and they're demanded to produce the child. We have lots of other cases that are no body cases, M cases. Most cases are built on circumstantial evidence and not first party, right? Jess, you mean Chris? Well, that's what I'm saying. There's plenty of stuff that has been said that we already know is chargeable. So I think that they have done all that they can to play nice. And the FBI is the FBI. And then coming out saying that they're working, which I thought people would have known when they issued the $50,000 reward, would have been enough. But I think now we're going to see arrests. I do. I definitely do, because everybody's been given plenty of time to just come clean with whatever they've done and whatever's happened to Sebastian. And at this point, obviously, being nice has gotten nowhere. And I think that they're going to just go in and start arresting people. I really do. I mean, you can't honestly think that the games that we have seen played online are just going unnoticed. There's no way. But it's 18 months. So now it's like it's enough, right? It is time for something. Time to slap some cuffs on Katie. Time to slap some cuffs on Chris. Bring them on into a room. Even Seth, And I'm sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings, but it shouldn't matter. Whatever it takes to get him cleared and whatever it takes to find Sebastian, he understands he's a sheriff. He should know that that's not because I think that he did anything wrong. We're talking in general, general. And then you will get answers out of people. But being nice to Chris and Katie is not, it's just crazy to me. But I get it. You give people long enough, you give them as much time, and then you can just follow everything that they're doing, right? Just follow everything that they're doing. And I think when you're talking about the internet and YouTube and everything, it's complicated. So it probably takes even longer to try to understand, why is YouTube so involved in this child's disappearance? Why are there so many people that these parents were close with, Katie and Chris, and so comfortable with, and still are? And why do these same people go out and intimidate, and run off anybody else? Why would anybody allow that to happen when they're searching for their son? See, I think all of that stuff is a tactic, Jess. I think that if you really look into true crime and stuff, there's a lot of reasons that things would be done like that, Now, in the beginning, I do think that TBI might have given it wrong, because in the heat of the moment, they're going to believe the parents. You're going to see the pictures of Sebastian that were like 3 years old. You're going to think he's this little boy that has autism, and he could be, in the water somewhere. He could be hiding in a bush. He could be in a very scary situation, because a lot of children with those levels of autism, we don't know. They might have made it sound like he had severe, profound autism, like my daughter. And they would just jot everything down and take the parents' word for it, because it happens so often with children, sadly. And then they start to realize, wait a minute, he's high functioning, he's not an eloper, right? Something's not right here. So the initial report that went out, I can understand having the date wrong, because you're going based off of the mom. And not for nothing, it seems pretty clear to me now, after reading what the FBI wrote, that they told different stories to everybody. So do we know what time frame they told FBI? Was it after midnight? Because they told them, and if you read that, update, that he has a yellow flashlight. The time she went to bed was different. Well, that's why I don't think there's much more time before we're going to see a lot of movement, Jess. I really don't. 18 months is a really long time, but at the same time, with how complicated it seems that this case was intentionally created from the beginning, I can see why it would take a while to try to understand, because there was so many intentional things that were set out there to distract law enforcement, in my opinion. And there was many of these locals that when they would sit there and live stream, they even said, oh, I know the police are watching. Well, you think that some of the investigators don't think that that might be another reason that you're trying to get their attention off of stuff and keep it on other stuff, But I don't think it's going to be much more time. I think there's definitely going to be arrests. Just like why I think they've left that he's 14 on some things, to see the reactions of the parents. Does that make, Katie come out and say, hey, my son is 16, he's not 14, hey, this is what happened, not that. That's what you expect. Oh, I know, Gina. It was unbelievable. I still can't get over the neighbor, if even in the beginning, that called in saying that he went to school with his daughter, and in middle school, he had asked to be put in a trash can. And then he went out and did those Repent Chris Proudfoot protests. Like, Seth isn't from here. That was one of the things my husband's always saying. Seth Rogers is not from here. Right? He doesn't have these close friendships and everything the same way that the stepfather and stuff would. So just because some people say, oh, well, that person was with the father. Well, how would the father know who's being sent his way? He's not going to know. He's not from here. He just moved here. But it was very interesting how so many distractions were sent out. And then they did go search the landfill. So then everybody assumed, well, the garbage weighed, more or this or that. Just like everybody assumed he had to have been seen on camera. Everybody was positive that they must have had some sort of video that he was on camera for them to be saying that he was in the area of Stafford Court. But even now, the FBI update isn't specific. It's very, could be either or the way that it's written. I don't know if it's AI that they used or what. But it says that they weren't seen on the neighbor's cameras, leaving the house. Doesn't say that he was seen on camera coming back to the house after Texas Roadhouse. It says they weren't seen leaving the house after Texas Roadhouse by vehicle or something like that. So the wording of everything I always think is very interesting, because I really don't think he came home from Texas Roadhouse. Well, I mean, that's what I mean, Jess. It's obvious if we've all seen it, and there's been so much of it from the get-go. And don't forget how they all acted like they didn't know each other and they weren't talking to anybody and all this and that. Like, you don't think that's going to put red flags for law enforcement? This is an active investigation into a missing child. This isn't a game. But I think that people think it's a game because they think, oh, they're not going to get caught. Well, even if you had nothing to do with specifically what happened to him, being involved in playing games and causing obstruction and all the different games and things, gang stalking, intimidating her, cyber stalking, all kinds of stuff. There's so many different things from in real life that they've done locally, right, to confuse investigators and to have so much resources diverted if they don't even know now if the child really came home. That's the way I think of it. That's why I think the FBI is actively involved. And if they are friends with Chris and them, and that's why they were turning the other cheek, well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see people right there at the police station get replaced and get in trouble for not handling it right, because you should recuse yourself, right? You should not, if you're friends and you could have a bias, then you should not be an investigator. I personally have a feeling, though, that possibly Carter, right, isn't. Maybe it's just that they realized early on that there's a lot more to this. It's really messy and it's going to take time to sort through. And they're just going to go over everything. That's what I'm hoping. But there's been a lot of corruption in Tennessee. There's been a lot of problems, sadly, with different police departments and things like that. So it wouldn't shock me if that's what's happening. It wouldn't shock me, but I could also think of a lot of reasons that they would use all kinds of strategies also. Oh my God, it's so horrible. Lisa, it's so horrible. I just can't even believe the stuff that's been said about Sebastian and that the mom could be okay with that. You know, just like in the beginning when they were on that Duchess for the Missing channel and he interjected when Katie was talking and he says, you know, let me make this crystal clear. The mom, you know, when he referred to her as the mom, it was like he had this all planned out and scripted for a long time. It was so gross. And even in regular conversations, you would never say the mom. You know, it's not like his mom or Sebastian's mom. You wouldn't even say that. But it was the mom. Oh, yeah, a lot of the stuff that it's been done online could end up being in court because it's firsthand, right? If it has something directly to the case. When you're a child's missing, you're a suspect. Then the stuff that you're saying can and will be used against you in a court of law. We've heard it many times, right? So, I mean, there's been a lot of other cases where things from that have been said and done online have been brought into the courtrooms if that person is the one saying it. But I don't think they really need a lot of the YouTube. I think that they have plenty of inconsistent statements that were given to investigators. I think that the private eyes that came in have plenty that they probably, you know, have handed over or will hand over with or without, you know, warrants, you know, willingly or with warrants. I have a feeling that they have plenty. There was a lot of stuff that was really ready, set, go. That was in the beginning. That's what I was like, what is this? There was a lot of weird stuff on the TikTok, on the Facebook, you know, different people that were ready to call in, you know, with different stories. And then those people ended up, you know, being best friends with the family. And I mean, when I knew there was something odd when the stepdad was so close to that one creator. And then you find out that a couple of them were like, oh, we've known each other for 40 years. Yes, Lisa, I forgot about that. That's what I think, KJ. And that's why I think that when people like me or anyone else goes over some of those, you know, long hangouts on the panels, that they get so mad about that because they don't want those conversations, you know, brought to the investigator's attention. Because when there's hundreds of hours of stuff that you think that you've sent investigators on a wild goose chase to look at, you know, they probably hope that they haven't stumbled on some of those things. But I just don't think, I don't think that's how it is. I think that sometimes it takes a while, but the FBI has it. We have technology that can sort through it. And eventually every statement, every text message, you know, would be sorted out and figured out. I just think it would take a lot of time. But some people seem to be in this echo chamber of acting as if as long as there's no body, then there's nothing that, is illegal, and there's nothing that can happen. And I've been flabbergasted by it, because there's so many other things that people can be charged with. There's, what was the name of that show? Oh, Mr. and Mrs. E, the crime cast. They had done a show once talking about different laws and how most people break 3 or 4 laws a day, not even realizing, because we have so many, wackadoo laws still on the books. So just on a typical day, the average person might break 3 or 4 laws without knowing it. But for some reason, everybody seems to think that you can do all this stuff when the child's missing during an active case, and that it's fine, that it wouldn't be considered interfering, or, all kinds of things. I have a whole list of them that I can read to you guys later. Unfortunately, I don't anymore. I had for a while, thought that was possible, but at this point, I don't. And I pray I'm wrong, but I don't. I don't think we'd see this kind of panic, anger, rage, and things like that if he was okay somewhere. I don't. It's really heartbreaking. I do think that maybe some people have been okay with, some of the behaviors, because in the beginning, maybe they thought that he was. I don't know. That's the thing, though, Jess. It's like the attention might not seem as big when it comes to people talking about it on the internet, right? Because there's so many cases. But the attention is far from cold when it comes to the FBI, LE, and everything like that. So they might think that the internet, the little, parts of the internet have cooled off, but I think that that's just, they're nonsensical if they really don't think that there's this very active. I think it's just heating up. I think that when you make a fool out of our law enforcement, and then you're trying to make a fool out of our FBI, you're on this woman's channel that has shorts saying that they're the devil of YouTube, and she sits there making fun of people, or like me and other people, and puts coffins on thumbnails over a former FBI agent, right? Jennifer Coffin Daffer. And those are the people that you're sitting there hanging with. I think that would make agents have a fire under their tushies to try to figure out what's going on and kick all of them off their high horses for making a mockery of them. That's just my personal opinion, right? Because so often it takes something that has to affect us, right? For us to really, not that they don't do their jobs in general, but I feel that in certain instances, there's something that makes us go that extra mile. And I think that this kind of behavior has probably made a lot of different people, from regular people like me and you guys to law enforcement, go that extra mile. Maybe even people that they think are their family, and, that they have in their pocket, so to speak. There's a real child missing, and this has been beyond disturbing. So I think that it's going to only get more intense with law enforcement. And the more that they act a fool, the more that they talk about regular people, the more that they get mad, which is why, I hope that, Seth realizes and doesn't, take the bait of caring what anybody says and does, because it doesn't look right. And they, in my opinion, they know that, that we will start to see attention. But when do you remember the FBI getting involved in a missing child's case with a reward up to $50,000 for information about their location? When do you see them get this involved? We don't, right? It's stuff like that, KJ, that I think, if anything, it helps the investigation, you know? When people are so bizarre, when there's a child missing and they are so ready to go for the, stepdad and mom from the beginning, the more and more and more, it's not, I don't think it's helped them one bit. I think it's made people dig in and dig in and dig in. I agree, Mama. They have answers, right? There's always been guilty knowledge. I think it's obvious of that because there's so many inconsistencies, and they're going to have to just come clean, and just whatever it is, it is. And I believe very, very strongly in God, and that God is greater, and that, the power of prayer is really important. That's my personal beliefs. Because we see it all the time where somebody
that is more effective for treating real pain than opiates. So opiates you have a conundrum there because they're so effective in managing pain, and they're highly addictive. And so, the message of do no harm rings through your mind as you're trying to help people take opiates that need them, but take them in a way that it doesn't destroy their lives. And boy, I'm going to tell you something. You think alcohol can cause things to go off the rails? Not like opiates. They're very similar to, the rock and roller coaster, except you take them, nobody knows you're taking them until you start, and then you almost fall over, the jerk wakes you up. But the weirdest thing about it is that there is a stream of consciousness that doesn't go to sleep the same way that, like when you lay down to go to bed, neurologically, the brain going to sleep is a really, really complicated process. It's a multi-path process. And one of the paths that is taken is that your brain actually will paralyze your body, while the consciousness part of your brain is working. You've got memory consolidation. Sleep is actually a really active cognitive neurological process, but the body is paralyzed so that we don't get up and walk around and act out our dreams, right? With opiates, you don't have that. With opiates, you're going to sleep. You don't really have the paralysis. And the stream of consciousness is very strange because you could be talking like this and continue right with what you were saying as if you never slept. And indeed, the person that is on the nod, they don't have any realization that they just went to sleep, like right in front of you as you're looking at them. They just pick up and keep on talking. And then it's just, to them, it never happened. And the listener, the person having the conversation with them is like, oh, what's happening? What is this? So it is incredibly dangerous. If you're taking narcotics or opiates on a level that you are on the nod while you are sitting up in a chair and the sun is out, you're dangerous. You're dangerous. You're dangerous to yourself, and you're dangerous to any creature that is under your care, whether it's animals or it's children or it's elderly people. You are out of control if you are on the nod. You are incapacitated. You have a disability if you are at the level of opiate intoxication that you are on the nod. There are very distinctive differences between someone who is on the nod and someone who has narcolepsy and someone who is just exhausted and, stayed awake too long. There are notable differences. For one thing, I've been driving far distances before, like at night. Like I lived in West Virginia, Kentucky for a while. I would drive home to see my family's 20-hour drive, or drive to Colorado, 19-hour drive. I've been there where you're driving and you're like, oh my gosh, I just almost fell asleep. This is very scary. You feel so physically uncomfortable when it's exhaustion, when you've been too long without sleep. Your body makes you so physically uncomfortable that you just will stop everything so that you can sleep. You're just like, I'm done. I'm too uncomfortable to continue this. I'm finished. And then with intention, you lay your head down and you're out, right? It's with intention. The nod is different than that. That discomfort is not there, partly because of the opiate. And so the part of the brain that puts you to sleep, your stream of consciousness remains active. You don't have the physical stimulus that is telling you you're in physical pain, you're in physical discomfort, you need to sleep. So you fall off to sleep and you jerk yourself back awake and you continue to talk as if you never fell asleep, and you don't feel uncomfortable, so you look alert. You can go on the nod and continue another conversation for 15, 20 more minutes. Then maybe you go back off again. It is a noticeable pattern that is standard among all people that reach that level of opiate intoxication. Fire, paramedics, policemen, doctors, nurses, we know it when we see it.
You better not.
If you are that incapacitated, any living creature that is under your care is in a dangerous situation because you're not available. Now, there's some things that I want to talk about, and you guys have heard me say before. Why do we have the Chris Watts of the world or the Barry Morphew? Right? There are people that knew Barry Morphew and Suzanne and the two girls, and
School time. Let's go.
they were me. That Barry and Suzanne were me and my husband. They were you and your husband. They're just two normal people that fell in love, had a family, made a career, then started facing real problems, real life problems. The stress got to them. Suzanne with the cancer returning, Barry making poor choices for trying to deal with his negative emotions and his loss. And I got news for you. Stress is not the way you think. You're not having stress because you're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm such a nervous wreck. I'm stressed. Stress is a chemical change in your brain that affects the rest of your body. Stress is something that can make you have hallucinations. Stress is something that can make you become completely delusional. Stress is something that can cause you to kill